What's up, everybody, and welcome to a very special Live With. Today, we're really excited to be sitting down with the one, the only Luke Wadey to be talking about his upcoming Mono X Chroma edition going live this Saturday on Kickstarter. Steve, I am super pumped, man. It really is, but I'm super pumped for this one, man. I always love, first off, favorite series of mine, hands down from Luke, is always the Mono series. So when he says he's coming out with the new Mono, man, I am amped up. Yeah, absolutely amped up.
I'm excited too. Mono X is my favorite deck of his, so I'm excited about this Chroma edition.
Dude, it's going to be fire. And also for anyone who hasn't seen the teasers yet, and if you haven't seen them yet, you're missing out. But this is going to be the first gilded deck from Luke.
Gilded.
Yeah.
How long have we been talking to this guy about gilding a deck?
A long time. And we are really excited to see this coming out because I think Luke was very on the fence with it. And we'll pick his brain a little bit more on it when we get him in here. But this is going to be probably one of the best mono decks. No question about it. And I thought it would be hard to top the Hexa, but I think he may have done it, man.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Definitely. So, Steve, we ready to kind of kick this off here?
Sure. Let's do it.
All right, everybody. We're going to kick this off now.
Luke! Dude, it's finally up.
That was awesome.
I was like, what better day to do it than a day with Luke in here to appreciate a nice little intro for Deckin Around that we've been working on for like 7 months and just never uploaded. So here we go. But dude, I am so pumped to see this deck, man. You must be nervous, Luke. I'll say I feel like you're nervous about the Gilded more than anything, but you excited about this one?
Yeah, I mean, let's just divert our attentions back to that intro because 7 months in the making is more than a lot of people spend on decks. So,
it's been ready.
It's been done since April, and we just never really were like, yeah, we're good. This is how Steve and I do. We have these like big ideas. We get them done. They sit in a folder somewhere. Then one day him or I are like, yeah, dude, whatever happened with XYZ? And we're like, oh, we should get that done.
The funny thing is that's like this much of what we have in store that we've been sitting on that we just haven't done.
Tip of the iceberg.
That's like that big of a part of it.
As you know, this is a very laid back show, and with a laid back show comes a laid back attitude. And so here we are.
Hey, it looks awesome, guys. Looks awesome.
Thank you. Got a couple little tweaks to make to it, but I like where it's at. So it was good enough for prime time. Dude, here we are with you sitting down to talk about the beautiful Mono X Chroma. How you doing with it, man? How you feeling about this?
I'm scared. It won't fund.
Okay, now I will tell you right now, it's a rare day when a Wadey does not fund. I'm gonna call it like these are your art pieces here, man. They fund. You know, you had your stint. We've talked about this on the lives in the past. You had your stint in the beginning.
Just touching all the wood.
There you go. But like, you have to remember, like, you have a dedicated following now. I think that dedicated following is definitely going to get you to that goal. So I wouldn't be too nervous about that. Do you think because of the addition of a gilded deck, you have a little bit of a higher goal point on this one than usual? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things obviously you guys touch on in your Kickstarter shows and we've spoken about in the past is that setting a realistic goal is always something you've got to do, otherwise you're going to leave yourself out of pocket. So adding on the gilded, and it's going to come with a different tuck box as well, nice. Means that it's definitely adding to the goal, and I hope we can make it. But you know, with the kind of premium tucks or the different tucks, I think it was quite important to do because, you know, talking to a few of the guys in the community and a few friends as well, often when you get a gilded deck, you don't necessarily know it's gilded unless it's got a different sticker on it. There's no real proof. So I wanted to make sure that the tuck is going to reflect that, which is exciting because it means I get to make another premium tuck. It'll be my second one.
And it's silver.
Yep.
Dude.
Yep.
That's going to be,
I mean, like
nice.
You guys have been saying for ages, I need to do a gilded deck, and you finally peer pressured me into doing it. So
yeah, and you can thank us now if you want.
I mean, if it funds, I'll thank you.
Oh, yeah, yeah, exactly. You can thank us now if you want.
So and I think the interesting thing about it, though, too, because this is also your first mono where you're almost replacing the limited edition with the gilded in this one to some extent. I mean, I think obviously the gilded probably won't be as Well, is it going to be as limited as the old LEs, or is it going to be pretty much as many as people want to pick up?
So the limited editions have always been a bit strange because they started off at like 10 or 15 and it was 30, 50, like 100, and then Hexa happened, and then Arrow V2 happened, and it's like, okay, we've got 475 limited editions now.
Yeah.
Which I think it was mainly because I had a lot of people saying I missed out, and I didn't want to be the guy to stop people from getting the decks. So lower the price point, try and sell more decks. But with the Chroma, it's because it's already a special edition. It kind of like, it shouldn't have a limited edition, you know, like Mono X has got its limited edition already. So the gilded decks, they will be limited, simply because that way I can try and budget to work out what the goal will be appropriately. And also because it's something new that I'm doing, I don't want it to go catastrophically wrong. I would rather it have a damage limitation, you know.
Understandable. That makes a lot of sense, and honestly, it'll help you kind of gauge the interest for future campaigns with it as well. And I mean, again, anytime you try something new, whether it be a gilded aspect or different kind of tux or a new printer or whatever it ends up being, there's always that kind of fear that the slightest change could impact, you know, majorly that whole ripple effect. So I think it's a good idea that you're kind of taking the slow approach with it. And I think it's also going to hopefully get people even more excited about it because it is that limited aspect there.
Well, thank you. And I hope so. I mean, I wanted to make sure also that it didn't impact on the rest of the campaign, because even though Arrow V2 is kind of, it's out of my control in terms of what's going on, I've been doing everything I can. Like, if you guys could see behind the scenes, it's been ridiculous. But I think doing the gilded deck, I wanted to make sure that it won't be sent out at the same time as the standard decks, just because that way people won't be waiting around. And
for sure.
I'm hearing so many delays about the gilding anyway. Why would I hold up the entire campaign just for 200 decks?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to hold it up either. Even though a lot of decks like in my campaign are gilded.
Yeah,
like, I'm sending out standard first also because there is a huge delay on gilding.
We'll probably end up doing that on Warrior Women as well. And it makes a ton of sense, I think. You know, I think people are willing to accept those kind of delays on a partial portion of the campaign, especially when there's communication about it. That's always the biggest thing. And I think that's one area that you're exceptional with your campaigns. You communicate to a precise level. I have no doubt that you probably already have all of your post-funding updates already scheduled on a calendar somewhere. So
no, because that would assume that we're going to fund.
Well, there you go. Tentative post-funding updates. You gotta use the proper terminology so we don't jinx it for sure. But I know you're a meticulous creator, and that's one of the things that honestly, like, I always respect about your campaigns. You know, we were even talking about it this week with the I can't even remember which campaign it was. It might have even been last week, one of the campaigns that did the whole image idea. And I remember when you first came to us being like, listen, I want to do these images, blah, blah, blah. You know, I really want to get into it. And I remember part of the reason you didn't get into it initially is because you just couldn't get the vibe right. That's one of the things that, like, must be a headache for you sometimes, but I think everyone really appreciates is you are meticulous. You want perfection, and you really don't like to settle for less.
No, thank you. And I just feel like within this community, if people are going to be willing to support you, the least you can do is try and give them the best you've got in return. So 100%. Answer your emails late at night, answer your messages whenever you can, try and create the best product. I mean, there's going to be a limit. You can't print the decks yourselves. We're not all Low-Trek.
Sometimes I wonder though if he can even print the decks themselves. He gets delayed so often.
Dude, that's why they're delayed, is because he's doing them himself.
Oh man, he falls into his own little trap there. Well, and that's the interesting aspect of it. You're always beholden to someone. Even him who prints his own, he's still renting space, you know? So there's always that aspect where no matter what, unless you, like you said, unless you truly are fully vertical, you can't account for all that. And even then, everything's out of your hands because the United States Postal Service is trash. So
no, it's so true. And it's, you know, it's like Arrow, the latest Arrow that I've just done. I was like, every single step of the way, I was obviously updating backers, keeping that transparency there. But everything was done express. Everything was done all night, you know, to try and do what I can as a creator And then it's like, okay, well, now I've got to wait for FedEx, or now we're waiting for Gambler's Warehouse, or, you know, the other cogs in the process you have to wait for. And that's just part of what comes with it. And as the market has grown insanely over the last couple of years, especially for Kickstarter campaigns, it's just something we got to deal with. And if you're lucky, the backers will read your updates and they will read your messages and understand. So you can only try your best, right?
Yeah, dude, that really is all you can do. And honestly, I think there's as we see more and more decks coming to fruition, you're going to continue to see these things. I think it's actually a great opportunity now for ancillary services to playing card creation, for people to say, I want to start gilding decks, or I want to get into fulfillment, or I want to get into other parts of the process that support the playing card creation, because we're already seeing backups no matter how big they are. You know,
exactly.
It might be a little tough to see people go, hey, I'm going to create my own card printing company. I don't think we're going to be getting necessarily USPCC competition, but we may see people start branching out to other large brands like Legends, TWPCC, Expert, all of those that traditionally would have tried to stick with Cardamundi and USPCC as well.
Yeah, and I think it also comes down to what you're trying to achieve with the deck. I mean, there's a deck that I'm working on that, I mean, Steve will have seen it via the Patreon, but there's an ink color I want to achieve from it, and the big printers can't do it. So I'm probably going to have to take that through a different printer who can make a bespoke ink color. And it's, you know, don't get me wrong, I am not at all envious of the position of these companies. So every effort that USPCC or Cartamundi or Gamblers they put in, they're huge companies that have a lot of moving parts, and I thank them for all their efforts and all the work they put into what we pay them to do. But you know, sometimes you do just get left a bit high and dry, and you've just got to stick on in it and then hope for the best.
Yeah, it's that's one thing that I've learned throughout this process of Kickstarter is dealing with all these companies, and fucking hell, getting people to respond on time or keep you up to date, or it's good Lord. It, like, literally, Tyler and I have phone calls where we're like, what the hell? Good God. Like, what they, you know, it's terrible.
Yeah, and I think, you know, sometimes as a customer, we have to take ownership of that as well. You know, if a creator asks us for our address and then we don't tell them that we've changed our house, then we have to accept that. And, you know, you can't have everything. You gotta, it's a two-way street.
100%, man. It's tough sometimes with all of that. And I think honestly, people forget that it is a hit or, I don't want to say a hit or miss process, but it's never a smooth process, no matter who you are. I mean, you could be the biggest creator out there for playing cards, and unless you are literally USPCC, you're gonna have hiccups. Even they probably have hiccups. They just cover it better because no one knows. So it's always interesting to see. But you know, obviously going into a campaign, I feel like we're talking about all the negative things as you're about to kick off a new campaign. So instead, why don't we talk about the exciting aspects of this? So again, first time gilded deck, you're really pumped on that. First look went out to the Patreons, always there. So for anyone who actually isn't a Patreon on Luke's page there, link is down in the description below. So you might as well go swing over and check it out. You get some first looks and behind the scenes looks for a lot of his upcoming campaigns. And I know from what I've heard and seen, there's a lot of excitement around a lot of the decks you're creating. So for anyone who really wants to see what's going to come out before it hits the mainstream, check out the Patreon link down in the description. But what else really kind of drives this one for you? This is a reimagining of the original Mono X. How does that feel kind of revisiting this?
I think for me, it was kind of like when I did the Chroma for the Hexa version, I was starting to think about, okay, I do design cardistry decks, or I do design typographic decks, but what would more Magic themed decks feel like to me? What would more traditional decks feel like to me? And seeing that the Chroma for Hexa got, you know, a good reaction and receiving it, I was like, okay, actually, all right, I quite like this. This is something nice that's different. And okay, yeah, I'm not foiling the cards and I'm not, you know, going full shebang on it, but it's a slightly different area for me to explore and challenge myself to see if I can do something a little bit different. I don't want to stagnate and only do one thing. I want to be known for my style, but it doesn't mean I only want to design one thing at a time. And it made sense to go back to where it started in the Mono X, because I could just see what X Chroma would look like in my head. And
Yeah.
you know what I hate the most about it all is that the decks I'm doing, I'm adding more words to them. Every name, it's like a Mono X Chroma edition special, England exclusive. Whereas Arrow was like 3 letters. Job done. Move on with me.
Dude, if nothing else, you're helping Steve and I with our articulation, so it'll be all right.
In AVH, that's another 3 letters.
Yeah,
you know?
AVH, exactly.
Well, that would have been a long one too, though, if there hadn't been other snafus there. But I'm excited, honestly, and I'm excited to see this because I know from the Mono Hexa Chroma edition, a lot of people were really excited to see a mono border deck.
Yeah, and you know, fantastic support from everybody, and I really appreciate that people wanted to see more of it. But again, that comes with the worry of, will it do well? Because people might look at the X Chroma and be like, oh, I've already seen the Mono X, you know. But for me, it's a different deck. It's got a different back. It's got a different vibe and a different story to it.
Yeah.
So hopefully people can see past the fact that it's also got an X in the name.
I mean, let's also be candid about this. There are very many brands out there whose claim to fame is designing one design and just recoloring it a million times. So with that in mind, and successfully though, and successfully. So let's be honest about it, you know, give credit where it's due, successfully taking that approach. So who knows, maybe there is an appetite for refinement and border addition to previously, you know, full bleed decks. I think that's more likely, because in reality, changing the color doesn't really change much about it, but changing from a borderless to a border deck actually does have an impact in what situation you'd use the deck, how it looks visually more so than just color, you know?
Totally. And, you know, it's like I've always said, I don't want to do recolors, or I don't want to do like the quick fixes, but like you say, when it comes to doing borders or borderless, there's a totally different emotion that you can create. And as someone like yourself who likes to make fans, you know, it completely changes as soon as you get rid of the borders or you bring the borders in. So
absolutely,
I won't ever say that every deck I'll do a bordered and a borderless version. But I could definitely, like, you know, I look at Arrow V2 and I think to myself, that would look really cool in those colors, in those inks, borderless. Yeah. But that's the decision you make. You place your bets and you go with what your hunch is, you know, and couldn't be happier with it. So,
that's good though, man. And I think, you know, again, for someone who's such a perfectionist, when you're happy with it, I have a feeling that the masses will be happy with it as well. So I'm excited to see what the reception is for this, especially because it is a new take on the Mono series that, you know, you tested in the Hexa. And the Hexa, I think, was such a revolutionary idea in the Mono series, something that people hadn't seen before in so many different ways. But to realize that Chroma actually had a lot of potential behind all of the change really is beneficial there. So I'm excited for it. I think a lot of people are excited for it, man.
Thank you. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
So do we want to? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it obviously means that if Hex has got a Chroma and X has got a Chroma, then there might be another one.
Yeah.
Grid
Chroma.
Grid Chroma.
There might be.
I'm always down for a Chroma. I'm always down for a Chroma edition of a Luke Wadey deck, because I think honestly it's fun, and I like the fact though too that you came up with a name for this. You came up with an actual like feeling to tie to it. It wasn't literally just like bordered Mono X. Like you could have gone such a boring route with it, and that's something I really do love about what you bring to the table as well. Is like any good brand, you genuinely take every aspect of it and think about what the emotional reaction is going to be to it. It's not just like, I'm gonna throw a border on, I'm gonna call it Mono V2 and we're gonna go with it. Like there's so much more depth and thought that went into it. Hopefully everyone out there appreciates that thought.
No, thank you for picking up on that, because it is one of those things as a designer where you like to embellish a story within what you're designing, but be it something simple like typing the word grid out. Yeah, someone will look at that and go, you've just typed the word grid out on a tuck box. Or if you're calling something Chroma or giving a tagline or a strapline to any of your creations, it's nice to know that there's a thought behind it other than this is a black one, this is a silver one, you know. So and I'll try and do that for each of the decks, you know. Arrow had look both ways, or this particular one is define and refine because it was defined via the Mono X, and we've refined it into the X Chroma with a different design, and hopefully we can continue making stories together, you know.
Dude,
Yep.
I'm excited. I'm so excited for this because I really do like the direction you're going with it. So why don't we pull in some pictures here that you shared and
Go for it.
we can walk through here. So let's see what we got.
Yeah, Ryan Smith absolutely crushed the images on this because obviously the tuck box is going to be printed in an entirely metallic ink.
Yeah.
So using a prototype, it's only CMYK, and it's not going to look as good. But I still feel like he really caught the essence of the deck in the images.
Dude, I love the back design on the back of the tuck too, because it has such a different feel to it than the previous iterations of Mono. Like, again, it's not just like, hey, new deck in a same old tuck, or new tuck with a different deck, like new same deck, different tuck, things like that. Like, you really put a lot of thought into every aspect of it. Now, one of the big things that I think, getting a look at this one, you can see the 10 of hearts reveal there, which Chroma's being bordered. It's kind of a little bit of your foray into that world of magician decks, for lack of a better term. You know, I don't want to box it into that area, because anyone could love this deck. I think it's beautiful. You could use it for cardistry just as well as you could the Mono X. But I know you kind of built out the Chroma series with magic in mind. Why the 10 of hearts reveal? Was there anything special about that one? Thank you, Stu. We appreciate the support, man.
Thank you,
Nice
Stu.
one,
We
Stu.
love you.
The 10 of hearts, because I proposed on the 10th of that month that I proposed on.
That month.
What month was it?
That month.
Oh,
That-
damn. I want to say
right.
July. She's going to
It's all
kill
right.
me.
We know your fiance is not watching the show. It's all right.
Hey, you know what? In the mono, in the hexachroma, there's all sorts of reveals that are tied in. There's an engagement ring on the Queen of Hearts.
She can't be mad. You include her. That's what matters.
Oh no! What an idiot!
It'll be all right. It'll be all right. You know what I was gonna say? We can edit it out, but clearly we're live. So if she watches this,
out.
yeah. Steve,
nah, I'm
calm
pretty sure
yourself.
it's July.
There you go. But that being said, you know, again, that just goes to the fact that you really want. There you go. You want meaning behind all of these little aspects to it. So it's not just like, hey, I like the 2 of clubs, so I threw a 2 of clubs on there. There was a reason behind it. I love that aspect, man.
Ashley's
Exactly. Thank you.
What up, Ashley? And she's giving you a hard time there too. Tut tut.
Yeah. Well, the other good thing is that we're getting married in October next year, so that's the 10th month.
There you
Just
go.
saying, you know, there's a backup plan to that number.
Just in case. Yeah.
Kids.
Well, let's get off that 10 there real quick. I'm saving you here.
Yeah.
And so now we have this really sick view of the ad cards in the Mono X Chroma edition. Dude, this thing just looks good.
Yeah.
So these so the original Jokers in the Mono X used the typographic Joker made out of an X with the letters for Joker, which is why comparatively the Chroma, I wanted to go for something super simple, same as the Hexa, super simple, and but then still highlighting those kind of relevant letters that are using the inks in the deck. So with this being a kind of monotone deck again, apart from the red suits, the K is the black ink that's used, or to reference the black ink and tie it back into the Mono X. So it's all part of the stories.
Well, of course it goes the wrong direction. No, I absolutely love that there. I think, and that was going to be my question, why the CMYK, but all those little aspects just tying together to create this Mono series, you know, and tying through all of them. It's so cool.
Thank you.
And then this back design, dude. I actually have to say, I love the Mono X. I have a signed one over there. I have actually a signed version of every one of your Mono decks. It's the only decks I get signed, and they're the only decks from you I get signed, other than, well, that and the Arrow I get signed because I like those too. But I have to say, I'm like torn on this one. I don't know if I like the bordered or the borderless better.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those that I look at and think, oh, this is pretty sharp, this is pretty clean. But then I look at the X, I'm like, this is grungy. This is kind of a bit like it's two different vibes to it, and I can't work out which I like. Do you prefer wearing joggers or jeans? You know, it's one of those. They're both good in their each.
They both have their place. But yeah, I think that the way this kind of boxes the design in with the border just looks so clean. And the fact that even though it's a clean, unbroken border, there's those voids in the pattern that kind of add this visual appeal you don't normally see.
It's it's one of the defining characteristics I wanted for all the mono decks is that line work and that pattern work and the negative space. And even though the early mono decks had the kind of grainy textures as well, I felt that as it evolved, it just needed to focus more on the lines, and even subtleties such as the line spacing can really change the aesthetic of the deck. So as the X versus the X Chroma shows, it's that wider spacing versus the thinner can give it a more elegant vibe or a more edgy vibe for cardistry.
It looks so good. And it's really interesting too how much, like, looking on screen, the X clearly comes through, but I'm looking up on the monitor above me here too. And like, depending on the angle, it just kind of like fades in and out of view, where you have these, like, you focus on the lines and you lose the X, or you focus on the X and it's just like prominently there. I love it.
Thank you. And that's one of those things as well, that when you're kind of using it, or when a spectator is viewing it, I wanted them to be able to pick up on the X in motion, but then also lose it when it's moving quite quickly.
Yeah, which, for anyone who saw the story today, I had a little fun making a little spinning thing, and part of it, as it was zooming out and spinning, you kind of lose the X until it slows down, which was really interesting. And I was like, such a cool thing. And if it was anyone else, I'd be like, that's such a happy accident. But I know that was planned with you. And then when
you spin the decks as well, like if you just look at them straight on and spin it, you get a different shape that's created in the middle. So depending on the line work, you might get a circle or a square that comes out.
Nice, dude. And then the beautiful Ace of Spades here as well, which kind of brings some interesting geometric build out of the back design into it. Can't get enough of this, dude. It looks so good.
Thank you. And the aces are kind of, I started, obviously the mono aces all have that kind of line effect in them, but I wanted the chroma aces to have a significantly different feel to them while still using the line effect. And following on from like the Gen 1 deck and like the RV2, I'm enjoying doing these kind of a bit more, not quirky, because not a lot of people would look at that and think, oh, that's a quirky ace, but something that's a little bit less uniform, if you like, whilst not being illustrated. I want it to still feel geometric and still feel like pattern work.
It feels like almost like a collage in some sense, where you have that like hand hewn aspect to it versus that perfectly mirrored Ace of Spades we're all used to seeing stylized.
Exactly. And it's also why I wanted to bring the metallic inks into the ace and into all of the pips that are black, actually, just giving them one streak, because it gives them a bit of contrast. And when the deck moves, you'll get to see it as a kind of flat black or flat gray surface, but then as it turns around, you'll see the shimmer from that metallic ink, and it's just those little subtleties that help it just pop out a little.
Nice.
You said shimmer.
Shimmer.
And then in contrast to the bordered backs, you have these borderless face cards, which are just
love the standard face cards.
They look so good.
Standard courts, I mean.
They look so good.
We had to I had to keep the red suits in for the chromas just to make sure they were playable and usable, you know. So
yeah, that's great.
But thank you. And that's the other thing with the chromas is that unlike the mono standard decks, which have the kind of split two-tone, the courts and illustrations, they are all kind of two-way. So
nice.
Hopefully it just adds to a bit more usability.
Yeah,
nice.
Great. I love it.
Dude.
So yeah, third Joker, and that's a 10 of diamonds reveal. So we had 10 of hearts on the tuck flap and 10 of diamonds, again referencing the proposal date in July, and
October, wedding October. That's the 10th month for those that don't know.
Those that don't know. Oh my god, I love it. I love it.
But it gives you the ability to at least use the ad cards as well for changes and different. You know, I'm no magician, I'm no cardist. I can't even shuffle really, so seeing what other people can do with them will be interesting.
You know what we could do? If anybody wants to get engaged or married on the 10th month or the 10th day or whatever, you can use this deck kind of as like Luke created this deck for you.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. And dude, this tuck just looks so clean.
Thank you. I know that it borders on boring for a lot of people, because a lot of people don't understand that minimalism doesn't necessarily mean boring. It just means that you've controlled what you're doing because less can mean more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know it's not for everyone. None of my decks are for everyone. They never will be. We've said it a million times. But I felt like I had to do something for the Chroma that was a lot less shouty than the other mono decks.
It looks good though, man. It really I just love the look of it. It's so clean.
Thank you.
And then another fun look. First off, I have to say too, I always love seeing your logo on the tuck and on the decks because it's just so perfect. It's so
graphic design.
It really is like I could just imagine a resume coming across my desk with this in the top left corner and it just looking awesome. Who knows? It may be in the top right corner, but somewhere on the top.
Yeah, it's actually in the top left on my CV. So
there you go, dude. It just looks so good.
Thank you. And that's the funny part as well, is that some people, or most people, won't ever realize that, okay, it's an L with an underscore, but why is it an L with an underscore? I reckon a lot of people that buy my decks won't know.
Yeah.
But there's a story behind it.
What on your deck doesn't have a story?
The glue.
Probably. There you go.
The glue has a big story. Without the glue, you wouldn't have a deck.
It's not my story.
Oh,
but it's someone's story.
This thing just looks so good.
Really happy with how these images turned out. And I said to Ryan at the time, like, should I put like a fake gradient through the deck so it looks like it's shimmering without you having to play with it too much? And in all honesty, he said he could just make whatever work because, you know, he's awesome. But I went ahead and did a subtle gradient, and you can just kind of pick it out. But yeah, really, really happy with the images, and hopefully they're going to ensure people enjoy the deck as much as we do.
Dude, I think you've definitely hit the spot with this one. I think the back design, everything about it just does justice, pays perfect homage to the original Mono X while bringing it into that next kind of next level or that next iteration.
Thank you. No, I really do appreciate that.
Stu says, is the underscore a wheel?
I've not seen many flat rectangular wheels, Stu.
I'm very curious now what kind of car Stu drives.
It's very streamlined.
We actually did have another question that came in a little bit earlier that I wanted to touch on because I promised I would hit it. Where are we at here? All right, here we go. It's a long one. I'll read it for you. I have a question, something I've been curious about since I started backing Luke's Mono series. Are there plans to use other shapes for the Mono series, or will it stay at what he has already created?
Okay, cool. So when I finished the Mono Hexa, that was what I was referring to as set one, which is why the 4-deck collector box came, you know, it had set one written on it because it had the X, it had the 2 zeros for the 2 0 decks, and the hexagon for obviously for Hexa. So that's the 4 decks in that. Now set 2 won't use any of those shapes. That will be using the X as a device within the name, if you like, because obviously Hexa, 0, all those have the X's in them. But the shapes and the actual style of the deck will still use the line pattern, but it will definitely be a different approach, and it won't be as uniform as the shapes that we've seen in the previous mono decks. So yeah, it's definitely going to change.
Nice. And so going live on Saturday, yes. 3 p.m. British Standard Time, which is 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for anyone who's curious as to when this is going live.
Thank you.
Dude, well, I had to like literally do the math earlier, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna like figure this out. So now I know. Anytime I can get to Eastern Time, I can get to Pacific usually pretty well. Sometimes I throw myself off; it's a little too much. But how are you feeling about the lead up with it? I think honestly, a lot of times we tell people when they're building out a campaign, you have to get the visibility on it, do the marketing, you know, whether you know it or not. I think we've shouted it out a couple times, but a lot of the things that we actually recommend people do come from discussions we've had with you or things we've seen you do in preparation for your Kickstarter campaigns. How are you feeling about the trajectory so far for the campaign? What is your biggest thing you're going to focus on from the marketing point of view for this deck on day one?
I think day one for me is just going to be about letting people know that it's come out that there is a limited amount of super kind of reduced bundles available. If I'm honest, the whole kind of marketing of this deck has been a bit odd for me and a bit strange for me, because whilst I feel like the images are amazing, I've almost felt bad launching this deck because I wanted Arrow done, and it should have been done. I don't like the feeling that people aren't receiving their decks and I'm launching a deck. Not because I know that they're going out. I know that I've instructed shipping and I've done all the work on it. But from a consumer point of view, I know that I would maybe look at it twice and think, okay. But I'd like to think anyone who buys my decks knows they can at least trust that they're that I'm taking care of them. So yeah, the marketing is strange.
That's one thing people know about you. They know, I think, Tyler and I talk about it all the time. I think in the beginning when, people are just starting out with their Kickstarters, it takes some time to build up that rapport with your customers and that respect and trust in the community. And I think you're obviously someone who's very trustworthy and deliver on your campaigns, so it's just a couple weeks difference. Your Arrow campaign is fulfilling as we speak, so sometimes you can't wait until the very last person gets your deck, because you might be waiting, especially now. You might be waiting 6 months for
with international shipping, it could be a disaster. So
dude, even like shipping within freaking states.
But I think, the fact that you're cognizant of that and it makes you pause says a lot about it. I think the people you have to be concerned about when they're trying to put out 5 campaigns in quick succession don't usually have their decks lined up in any meaningful way. So to me, that is a big one there, where you want to make sure that you're communicating it. And I'm sure you've really communicated it across the board that, hey, like, I'm going to be launching this. I wish we had been in a different place. You just said it here, the same thing. You expected Arrow V2 to be done and fulfilled. You were hoping it would be, but at the same time, there's a timeline on this kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't realize that Kickstarters take a lot of time, unless you're bankrolling it and then using the Kickstarter to repay yourself. Actually, you can only really do a couple of decks a year. And if you've got a lot of ideas, that's painful to kind of have to sit around and wait for.
Yeah. Well, you could do what Riffle Shuffle does and just have 5, 6, 7, 8 different accounts.
Yeah, they've got their technique down, haven't they? I just saw Stu's comment as well about just to answer Stu's comment about the metaphor and the word thing with the car design.
That makes sense then. Okay.
Yeah, no, that is quite a good point, actually. I wish I thought of that.
See, Stu, Luke isn't always as clever as we believe, but he does have his little meetings hidden everywhere. That's for sure. But this is a good one. Love it.
The underscore in my logo is all about how there's more to me than just the L. So it was, whether it will be design or community or playing cards, it's all about the underscore means there's more. So that's all it is.
Well, and
there's
you
a
could
lot more than the L, Luke. We know that.
Yeah, I'm a UKE as well, so
we won't tell anybody that.
And so we can take a look here at the upcoming Chroma bundle, which is a big one, limited to 70 backers here. This is the one you were mentioning that you're really trying to. This is that first come first serve. People are going to want to jump on this one as soon as possible.
Yeah, and the reason it's limited to only 70, unlike some of my other bundles, which were kind of unlimited for 24 hours or a week or whatever, is because I simply don't have enough Mono X decks. So I've put, some into the bundles. So this is one of the bundles. There were 2 more for higher tiers.
Nice.
And I've made some available for adding on as well. But I'm very conscious of the amount of decks, and I will probably have to buy some decks back from wholesale if they do all sell, but I'm willing to do that because it's not about money, it's about getting people the decks they may or may not want. So yeah, hopefully people like this bundle.
Dude, I think it looks dope, and I'm seeing the first off, I see the gilded deck right out in the front there. I'm also seeing the carrot case there. Is that going to be a clear carrot case? It looks almost a little bit frosted, or not frosted, but a little bit like colored there, so that's why I ask.
So that will be clear, but the idea is that once the 3 different mono decks get in there, not the AOE of the Mono X, once the other 3 get in, they have kind of a 3 tone of greys in there.
That's really cool.
And it's kind of lined up so that the 2 chromas sit on the sides, and then the M and the X, they sit in the middle of those gray kind of panels, and then the name reads across. So it's all kind of configured in a roundabout way.
Nice.
Dude, does your meticulous nature sometimes drive your fiance nuts?
I think she sees the house when it looks like a warehouse, and that drives her nuts.
I know that feeling right now.
I love it.
But yeah, I
absolutely love
probably
it.
do wind her up with, like, put a coaster under that drink and that kind of stuff. So
It's good
I
though,
have
man.
my coaster right here.
You're authentic. You're authentically yourself, and I think that comes through in every single deck. And I also think that's why you have such a supportive community built around the Mono brand and your brand, the Luke Wadey brand.
Well, I say it all the time. I'm incredibly humbled and grateful for the people that make any of my decks a reality or take time to message me. And I'm just a guy with a hobby that I do outside of work, and to share it with all you guys is it means the world. So
he sleeps less than anyone I know in order to get these decks done. I will say that there's probably not a week or two that goes by where I don't tell Luke he needs to go to bed. So
so true.
So what are we looking at here?
This is basically so that the people who thought that the X Chroma is exactly the same as the X can be shown that it's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like a really different deck when you look at it in this perspective.
Yeah, and I think it's a case of, all right, yeah, they both got X's, but they've got a totally different vibe just from the way you use the band work, and it still shows it's part of the same family, but it's different enough to warrant being a different design and not just a reprint.
Yep.
It's definitely a nice evolution there, man. I think it's gonna, I mean, again, I think for any collector out there who loves the Mono brand, they're going after this no matter what, but it really does show that you put so much thought into this evolution and into the cleanliness of the design. I think from the point of view though too, how do you feel about seeing the evolution there? Do you feel like when you look back at the original Mono X, it's kind of surprising how far you've come with it? Again, similar style, but there's really so much difference between these two back designs.
Well, it's, sometimes I lay out the kind of cards that I've designed, so especially from the Mono range, and I see the kind of differences and similarities in both the cards and the tucks, and I like to see that natural evolution, and I like to see that progression and story behind it. But it also makes me look at the X and think, damn, that came out really well. Like, I really did. For my first kind of deck that wasn't typographic, I'm really happy with how that came out, and to look at where it is now, I'm chuffed about.
Yeah.
And so when you show off your evolution, is the first deck you always put at the beginning the Hawk playing cards?
Ah! All right, see you later.
I'm still waiting for version 1, but version 2 to come out.
There are plenty of people that have asked for the Hawk, even as they were, and I often tell them they need to rethink what they're asking for, because
we definitely want it revamped, but
yeah,
it'd be cool to see it come out.
Dude, I think so many people just love the Luke Wadey story. They want to have that beginning foundational stone. No matter how you feel about it, people want to support you, and that's the beginning of the journey, And
I appreciate that, and that's probably why the Hawk deck will at some point be revisited and definitely redesigned, because I like to make people happy. So,
and redeem yourself.
I'm sure there's a redemption aspect to it as well. You know what? Yeah. You've more than redeemed yourself at this point, though. You went from Hawk to thinking that you could jump into the market without necessarily figuring out all the aspects, and then you kind of switched up and realized, I'm going to be true to myself and go with it, and you've had great success because of that.
I think that's all you can do as a creator in the end, is don't try and emulate anything else. Just get what your vision is and just go with it. And if people like it, it'll fund. If people don't like it, it won't fund, but you can always revisit. It's only time at the end of the day that you've spent.
Yeah. And honestly, sometimes it's also not the design that doesn't cause a campaign to fund. In many cases it is, but sometimes it's a timing aspect. Sometimes, it's going up against another big creator, and not that it's a competitive aspect, but people only have so much money to spend. And I think, that's one thing that people kind of get demoralized by is if they don't succeed at first. Like, take the feedback, figure it out, bring it back to the drawing board. I think it's a perfect, you're the perfect story for that. You tried and it didn't work and you knew this is something you wanted to do and you just kept at it. But you actually thought about it. You weren't one of those people who posted Hawk playing cards 19 times on Kickstarter, hoping eventually it would fund.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
I remember reading the initial review of that was after I cancelled the campaign, that really got me. It made me reevaluate what I wanted to do with playing cards, and I'm so glad that I got such a negative review from it, because it really did change everything going forward.
That's
absolutely, man, dude. I gotta say, if anyone hasn't figured it out, I'm super excited for this deck. I'm super excited for any deck that Luke drops. That's why we always drag him on the show kicking and screaming, so we can poke and prod at him and talk about these new decks, because we love the work that Luke does. We love the work that he does outside of just cards, as a member of this community, as a person who wants to bring art and personality and joy to the community. I'm super excited for this. For anyone who hasn't followed along on the campaign yet, the link is in the description down below. Make sure to click that and hit the notify button so you do not miss out on those 70 exclusive combo packs that are available at launch. Those things are going to go fast. So for anyone who's looking to get their hands on the original Mono X, pick up some fun chromas, get a gilded, get a cool carrot case, definitely be there. First drop, 3 p.m. British Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You do not want to miss this. Luke, if there's anyone out there right now who's on the fence about backing this, what's one thing you want to tell them right now that you hope will help sway them?
Honestly, if you're not feeling it, then I'm not going to force you to. Like, everyone, there's so many beautiful decks out there that if you're not 100% sure about a deck, don't get it. But if you see the potential in my decks and see the potential in me, then I'd be more than happy to welcome you on board.
Dude,
right on.
We absolutely appreciate it. And I'm going to echo what Laura's comment here is, thank you for staying up late to talk to us, Luke. We appreciate it. It's 11:15. Luke will go to bed in the next 6 hours, but we do appreciate you truly coming on and talking about this deck, man. We are all really excited to see the Mono X Chroma drop this Saturday at 3 p.m. British Standard Time. I'm not going through the whole spiel again, but for anyone out there who is not following Luke on Instagram, hit up the link in the description below. Make sure to follow him so you get a first look at information related to the Mono X Chroma and future decks. If you really want an even behind the scenes first look, make sure to hit up that Patreon link in the description below and become a patron of Luke. Support this amazing creator who we love in the community. He shows some great decks in there. He kicks around some fun ideas, and honestly, he's just an awesome guy. So for anyone out there who's looking for a new fun creator to support or to just carry on supporting, make sure to follow this guy right here, Luke Wadey. And dude, we cannot wait to see this thing blow up on Saturday.
Well, thank you so much for having me, guys. Honestly, really, really appreciate it. And keep doing what
Dude, you're invited all the time whenever you want.
I'm just going to sit backstage in all of your shows with popcorn.
That's fine. We're perfectly okay with that. We'll pull you in randomly. We'll do the hourly Luke check. So thank you to everyone coming out tonight. Make sure to follow the Mono X Chroma campaign, dropping live on Kickstarter Saturday. And while you're at it, make sure to like the video, share it with a friend, and subscribe to the channel.
Ring the bell. Peace!